Islamic sciences are divided into three: ethics, rulings, ahkam, and beliefs. And some of the debates and talks or topics are in other topics, are interchangeable. But this third part is when we talk about that ethics, this is the main part. When you talk about ethics or akhlaq, it means that how we treat each other and how we behave with one another. And there is also a relationship between the barakat we have and the blessings we have with how we treat people. And one cannot imagine a complete Muslim being one that separates himself from his societal responsibilities and is harsh with people. But at the same time, he's trying to reach Allah, he's praying to Allah, saying, Ya Allah, praying, doing salat, but he forgets the people, or he forgets about himself. So therefore, we look at completion. We look at the lives of Ahlul Bayt. We look at the life of Sayyidah Zainab, and that she was complete. Her worship, her tahajjud, she was the worshipper of the family of Imam Ali. And she worshipped, in some of the books of history mention her, that even if she could not stand up for her recommended prayers, or night prayers, she would sit down and do that salat. Or you have sayings that Imam Hussein alayhi salam would ask her sister to pray for him in her salatul layl. So she had a very exalted position when it came to spirituality and in divine ethics. But also when it came to the treatment of people and taking care of the orphans of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, also she was exceptional as well. Taking care, not losing sleep, protecting them, protecting the Imam of the age, Ali ibn Hussein alayhi salam, her brother's son. And so therefore we see she is complete when it comes to protection of people, when it comes to the role that she played as a member of society. So we look at Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam as being complete. One of the problems we have is we don't think of these three things. In my recommendations to you and those that are viewing are that we complete ourselves in three manners, all three. Not only, we have people that are good worshippers of God, but then they have bad akhlaq. They treat people very unfairly, or they lie to people, or we have people that don't care about themselves and they don't refine themselves. So we're looking at completion at all three dimensions of akhlaq. So alhamdulillah, this is the last volume, and I think this has about 13 topics inside it. Very interesting topics inside each one of these lessons that we're going to be presented. So let's begin with a question here. Is sociality, meaning that man, his need to be being a social animal, needing each other, needing to live in a society, is sociality an ethical value or not? Is it by itself, sociality, an ethical value? So we're going to be discussing this question today. Is the fact that you live in a community, you live with each other, is it something of value? Is it good? Is seclusion something that is wrong? So should someone not be secluded and to run away from society and have nothing to do with society? Is that bad? You've seen, people that are stuck in an island in film sometimes, and there's no doubt that there's great benefit in mental health, even in physical health, with living with one another, and also with many other benefits. But is it an ethical value? Is it good in terms of akhlaq if you live with others? If you are a good, as it compared to living by yourself, maybe not having a family, and finding a nice island or yacht or something, I don't know, one that you could drive yourself, and you're just you and yourself and the fish. Is this voluntary, second of all, or involuntary? When we talk about sociality, being ijtima'i, is this something that is in our hands? Are we forced to live together? I mean, if you want electricity, if you want internet, unfortunately you kind of have to live, unless you figure a way out to get electricity, or maybe solar panels and water. But in general, we have all these benefits from living together, because we didn't invent these things. We learned and benefited from the inventions of others. But in general, the author talks about, is it voluntary or is it involuntary? Is it natural in such a way that humans have to be social animals or not? All right. So we'll talk about these today, inshallah. Some people go to the extreme to say that man has to be and is coerced to live in society and be social. That there's no way that man cannot be social. Some philosophers say that. And they give a comparison, even though he doesn't want to dive into this philosophical debate, but they give a comparison that man is like a cell in an organism. That all of you right now that are here, we are part of an organism, and we're linked to each other and attached to each other, and there's coercion in this. We're forced. But obviously he rejects this, and we should reject this. You don't have to, especially now you see that when there's sustainable energy that can be brought to your, by yourself, or there's especially all these tools and equipment that you can go camping and you see it by yourself, and you might not need anybody, and you can have a very comfortable, sometimes, life by yourself. Man is not coerced or forced to live with each other. We're not forced. You can live. I mean, when you get autonomy, and maybe not children, but when you go, and especially if you're more financially capable, you could afford to do anything. I mean, look how the astronauts, there's a few of them, sometimes for a long period of time, there's a few of them, they're living together. Imagine if there's just one astronaut. I'm just saying. So at least for a time period, a small time period, or even if you want, man is not forced to live. It's not, we can say, dependent in society for sure. But there are factors that encourage us to live together. It is because these attractions cause us to glue together, like water drops that we get it, pulled into each other. One is instinctive. The instincts of man, or the qara'is of man, is in such a way that we are just naturally attracted to each other. So there's factors that encourage us. They don't force us, but they're so powerful. And you can imagine how powerful it is that some philosophers would say, no, it's coercion. It's forced. That they're instinctive. Some of them is attraction to the opposite gender. There's so much attraction to the opposite gender, and this part of man's instincts, that he wants to find people of the opposite gender, wants to find them. So, and then from then a family will come, and naturally a family is a small sector of society, a small part of society. So we see some factors being instinctive, that man by its instincts by itself is attracted to others. Or we see emotional reasons. As we said, psychologists say one of the main factors of someone's emotional health, mental health, is being sociable and living at peace and harmony with others. So you can imagine someone, and you see like even in the prison system, the harsh prison system we have, and how easily they throw people into prison. Even though this is one of the biggest dhulms when you think about prison, is what right does someone have to just put someone and lock them away for such a long time, just to be in a cage or something, It is something that's very harsh, just someone to leave society. And you see why, because of these factors. One is they're leaving society, and there's a little society inside prison, but then when they go and they force them to solitary confinement, and there's nobody else there, they get there's trauma, and they get mentally abused by just being by themselves. So we have emotional factors that also cause us to be inclined, that glue us together. And we can't really imagine, and sometimes we say, yeah, I want to be off, but really imagine being on an island or in the mountains, somewhere just by yourself and there's no way out. So yes, there's emotional factors. But are these the most important? Are these, the main factors? The author talks about actually the logical factors are the most important. What are logical factors? Meaning that it's much easier for us to help one another out and to benefit, mutual benefit, to live together. There's a lot of benefit. There's a lot of benefit. For example, maybe some of you live in big cities. Maybe some of you live in small cities. God forbid if someone becomes sick and there's a sickness, maybe sometimes in a small city there might not be a specialist, a doctor that knows how to treat this certain disease. So one of the better benefits of living in a large city is access to more people. And when you have access to more people, you also have access to all the techniques and all the skills that they have. And they can, if you are sick or if someone you know is sick, they can help, with the will of Allah, help cure them. So you see that there's logical motivations or different types of food. You don't, when you live in a large, say, even though there's bad in it too, living in a large city, but there's benefits. If you want to have, I don't know, sushi or something, and you live in a very small city in a little rural town, you're not, unless it's in Japan or somewhere, you're not going to get sushi, for example, that food that you want. There's going to be, in large cities, there's international food, there's doctors, there's technicians. You're going to get probably the best technologies out there compared to rural, and possibly even better teachers as when it comes to the education that they have and the training that they have. So in general, you see that when someone lives in a large, I'm not promoting to live in a metropolis or mega city or whatever, even though there's pollution in it, there's crime in it. But why? Because there's so much you benefit from each other. And that is the most logical motivation that we have to live with one another. And when you see also when it comes to those super large cities, you see the best types of clothes there, the best types of cars will be available there, the best types of homes will be available there. And why? Because we all provide for each other as long as you can afford it. You can get things that in very small towns and villages you cannot. But also, you get other things there sometimes that you can't get there, but I'm talking about things that you get from each other. So it is very logical for us to live with one another. It makes sense. And but does this still answer our question? So far we come to this conclusion that it's not coerced, it's not forced, but these instinctive, emotional, logical, and though they're not limited to these, there's other factors. They're not the only reason why that we live together. There's other reasons too. But is this an ethical value? Now the author talks about does this have ethical value? Now, okay, I live with people. Sometimes we live with a city with 1 million people. Sometimes I live in a city with its surrounding areas 10 million people. Or maybe I choose to live in seclusion. Is one better than the other in terms of ethics? Let's think about this. Does it by itself have virtue? Or you can even maybe get more into this, and but the author just wants them make it short and says this, that it depends on our intentions, just like everything else. Depends. Well, why do you want to live together? What do you want to do? What's your intention? Some people come to big cities to rob because everyone knows them in their own town, and if they were to rob something, they know each other and they would be exposed. But in big cities, nobody knows each other, so they can get away with a lot of robbery. Well, if your intention is to rob, of course it would be an ethical vice. It wouldn't be an ethical virtue. So why do you want to live with other humans? What's your intention? Why do you want to, for example, start a family and live in a small, have a small society, which is called a family, or a very small part of a society? What's your intentions? Is it, again, when we go back to those things, it's just instinctive? Is it just emotional? Is it just logical? Some people really, they want, children, sons, so they can grow up, and it's kind of like your retirement. Your son's going to work for you. This is how traditionally it used to be, for some people at least. They'd have a son, and daughters were not, bringing in income. Sons would bring in income, and the father would need help in his farm, or trading, or whatever he did, and they would have sons for protection and for strength, and it would give them a lot of benefit logically. So again, it depends. If you want to have children, I recommend you think about this. Is it just because of your instincts? Are you getting married just because of is it just part of my desire for the other gender? Is that why you want to get married? Is it just because of emotions? Or is it logical? So it goes back again to your intentions. Your intentions, of course, the best intention is to serve God and to become complete. And you understand that, for example, one good intention for having a family is, I know that my religion becomes complete because God wants me to, and He is the creator, and He knows what's good for us. So you see how different that is than someone that is just because of, say, for sexual desires that gets married. Or when they want to have children, is it just because of the emotions? And even though these are all good benefits, but is it just because I want to feel, because I want to be a mother, I want to be a father, I want to love, and I want to get, someone to love me, and I want to have children, these, and feel like I'm going to live, some of the reasons some philosophers say that people are inclined to have children is because they feel that they're living forever, that there's no death for them, because they see themselves in their child. Or you can have this intention that I want to have baqiyatul salihat. I want to help train and raise a person that will do salat, that will help people, help society. And when I'm in the grave, he's just going to be doing dua for me, and his children are going to be doing dua for me, and his grandchildren. What does the Quran say about the sociability of man? Does the Quran say we have to live together? Or does the Quran say, no, you should? Other exceptions. Well, one of the exceptions is hijrah, is leaving your society. We have, of course, it is an ethical thing to do, and there's virtue when a society is harmful for you. You hijrah and go to another society that's better for you. So we have verses in the Quran that talk about hijrah, migration, and it is very good and is very highly rewarded. And what it is though is you're leaving your society, but you're choosing another society. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're not being, you're living a life of seclusion. But we do have from Ashabul Kahf that either because of oppression or because of corruption or both, that they decided to leave and be a few people, and they decided to live alone by themselves. They decided to be secluded. And you don't see that, it's haram, for example, to leave society. You don't see verses like that. Actually, the Ashabul Kahf are from some of the traditions. People that will be brought back during the time of Imam Mahdi. Ajallahu ta'ala faraj. So you see that actually they're a good example in the Quran. There are people that will be in the hadith we have, they will be brought back in Raja, in the return, and we see them leave their society. So we do have examples in the Quran where seclusion, if you accept that the people of the cave is an example of seclusion or a mini type of seclusion, is something that is good. So the author at the end, he's pointing to this conclusion, is that we have verses for both sides. Verses that are pro being living within a society, and also verses that are for seclusion. So he says it's not unconditionally a virtue. What it is it depends on the situation, depends on that person, and depends on the stories. But let's look at some verses in the Quran. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we have i'tizal, which is seclusion, to stay away, from Prophet Ibrahim, 1948. وَأَعْتَزِلُكُمْ وَمَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ, I shall stay away from you and what you worship instead of Allah. وَأَدْعُو رَبِّي أَسَىٰ أَلَّا أَكُونَ بِدُعَاءِ رَبِّي شَقِيًّا. And so I shall stay away from you and what you worship instead of God. I worship my Lord and hope that my prayers will not be ignored. So we have i'tizal, the word, now I shall stay away from you. So again, this is a circumstance where Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam did not see it fit for him, did not see it right for him to live with his society. And this is, the author brings this example, and if you accept it as a example of polytheism and Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam leaving this society. Also you have one word which is i'tizal, which means seclusion. Also you have another word in the Quran, ruhbaniya, to be a monk, at least to live a monastic life, at least a life of seclusion, and not just to live all by yourself. And so we have in this slide, وَجَعَلْنَا فِي قُلُوبِ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوا رَأْفَةً وَرَحْمَةً وَرُهْبَانِيَّةً, and in the hearts of his followers we place compassion and mercy, the followers of Isa alayhi salam, his companions. مَا كَتَبْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ, this was their own method of seeking the pleasure of God. We did not command them, but they did this. And they wanted to seek pleasure, the pleasure of God. So we see sometimes in society or in history, if you accept these three examples from Ashab al-Kahf, Prophet Ibrahim, and the companions of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, the author has these three verses and categories of verses, that seclusion was for them, or at least in some form or the other, was good. Also, we have the opposite. This is the verse about Imam Mahdi and the government of Imam Mahdi. Or you have, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لِيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُم فِي الْأَرْضِ. So they're going to have successorship. Their successorship, وَلِيُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينَهُمْ الَّذِي ارْتَضَىٰ لَهُمْ. So we see then verses about that get attributed to Imam Mahdi that the author brings. And here he is showing that actually what is desired at the end, and what is, of course, what the perfect answer is always during the time of Imam Mahdi's government. We see actually that people are living in a society of monotheism. And of course, the end of the verse, it has يَعْبُدُونَنِي وَلَا يُشْرِكُونَ بِي شَيْئًا, worship me and don't associate anything with me. So the entire government of Imam Mahdi is the entire purpose from this verse we learn is for the worship of God, of Tawheed, of oneness, and of God. And we understand from this also that when there's going to be successorship, there's going to be obviously a society and a community and a nation. So these also verses show us the ideal situation. So he goes again to this conclusion that we cannot say it's an Islamic virtue by itself. What is important is our intentions. And even though we have instinctive, emotional, intellectual factors we talked about, but based on the needs that we have and the intentions that we have to serve each other, and because of so much value seen to help people, to help the poor, to help those in need, to help the weak, to help the oppressed, how great it is in Islamic ethics to focus on this part. And I'm telling myself this, and not you, friends. So to wrap things up today, we learned that man, it is not, it's voluntary. Sociality of man is voluntary. Sociality is not an ethical value by itself, depends on your intentions. And we do dua, inshallah, today that we can be of those that we help each other out, and we don't think that Islam is just limited to sujood and ruku, as we have in traditions. Irham turham. If you have mercy upon people, then mercy will be given to you. Irham turham. So remember these hadith, and remember all the sayings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and the explanations of our ulama that emphasize so much on helping people. Inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين